All three hit right on target. We dropped three, all three hit, landed right on enemy infantry. I'm pretty sure they were taken out. When people call artillery the gods of war, they usually mean the big guns or self-propelled howitzers, but those aren't the ones meeting the enemy first. The mortar is one of the Ukrainian armed forces' main tools for taking out targets. And the variety of mortars Ukraine is using? Absolutely wild. From Australia to the US, every possible kind of tube, as Ukrainian troops call them, and every possible modification is on the battlefield, which of course also creates some major headaches for Ukrainian crews. Meanwhile, the Russians have a very different situation. So, how is Western aid changing Ukraine's mortar units? And what are Ukrainian crews actually firing today? During the heavy fighting in Donbass in 2022 to 2023, some estimates say mortars were responsible for up to 60% of infantry casualties on both sides. Because of the way the rounds arc in, hitting from above, it's hard to hide. Even in well-dug fortifications, mortar fire is still deadly. And today, mortars are still one of the most effective weapons on the battlefield. Let's start with this beast, which honestly doesn't look much like a mortar at all. Meet the Polish Rak. This system first showed up in Ukrainian hands in 2023, and its operators loved it right away. The mortar's mounted on a Reshaping APC chassis, which makes it mobile and versatile in a ton of battlefield scenarios. Funny moment. We were trying to escape and a Lancet drone was chasing us. The driver's flooring it and we're all just hanging on for dear life. But man, it's a fast machine. The drone didn't catch us. It flew really close though. Our driver looked up through the open hatch and said, "I see it," and that somehow gave him an extra burst of speed. The only downside, according to the crew, mud. It hates mud. But when it comes to firing, this thing's a dream. The system automatically picks which shell to use. Shells are all a little different. Weight, design, all that. The commander enters the data into the computer. So the machine chooses the right round? Exactly. It knows where each one is stored, adjusts for the data, and just gets it done. The Rak also solves one of the biggest headaches for Ukrainian mortar teams: mixed ammo types. See, when it comes to mortar fire, every little detail matters. Shell weight, powder charge, even the mortar model itself. Since the ammo comes from all over the world, mortar crews often have to spend hours weighing rounds, matching them with powder loads, and checking calibration. The Russians, on the other hand, don't really have this issue. But we'll get to that in the next part. Now let's talk about the grandpa of the Rak, the Bulgarian Tundzha self-propelled mortar. This mortar, built on an MTLB chassis, was originally developed back in the Soviet Union during the 1960s, but it only went into serial production in Bulgaria in the 1980s. Here's a fun fact. A few years before Russia's full-scale invasion, Ukraine actually considered buying some of these from Bulgaria. The deal fell through, but surprise, they've recently shown up on the battlefield in Ukrainian hands. The exact origin and quantity? Still classified. At its core, it's just a conventional 120mm mortar packed into a vehicle with space for 60 rounds and a 7.62mm machine gun. Sounds pretty decent, right? Especially considering the Russians don't really have anything quite like it. Look at this beauty made in Ukraine as a modern take on the Soviet-era 2S12 Sani 120mm mortar, but with some critical upgrades. The 2S12 is still the most common 120mm mortar in the Russian army, and is also widely used by Ukrainian forces. One more time, and we're recording the sound. Enjoy. But the MP120, Ukraine's homegrown version, is tougher, thanks to improved barrel manufacturing and redesigned components. It's also way more user-friendly. Compared to the old Soviet ones, our 120 doesn't need to have the base plate dug in. We just fire one adjusting shot, and we're ready to rotate and fire in a full 360 degrees. The Soviet mortars had to be repositioned at a certain angle. You had to dig a new hole, adjust the base plate again, and the aiming arc was way smaller. If the enemy flanked you, you had to dig all over again. That takes time, and time is our guys' lives. You've got to admit, this beast deserves a like. It tells YouTube the video's worth watching, and helps us reach more people. The only real drawback of the MP120 compared to the 2S12 is its weight. All those upgrades and improved durability added a few extra kilos, which can be a problem when you're setting it up manually in the field. That said, the Russians are still doing just fine firing their old two S-12s. First off, they've still got plenty of barrels in play, despite their losses. Second, for the first 2 years of the full-scale war, the Russians weren't holding back on ammo. That made life hell for Ukrainian forces, who were working with way fewer rounds. Having a single standardized mortar system and massive ammo stockpiles made the Russian logistics chain faster and easier, from warehouse to launch tube. Today, Russia's been forced to source 120mm mortar shells from places like Myanmar. So yeah, not exactly the dream supply chain, and for these mortars, the rounds are produced and delivered together with the weapon. Meet the Alakran, a mobile, self-propelled, 120mm mortar developed by the British-Spanish company Milanian NTGS. The Alakran isn't just another tube. It comes with a built-in weather station, integrated into the fire control system to boost accuracy. The modern FCS fire control system uses dual GPS units to determine the vehicle's position and orientation, matches that data with the target coordinates, and calculates trajectories for various types of ammunition. It also includes an electronic control unit that manages barrel angle and direction, onboard comms, and a self-contained power system. And the real kicker? A patented cooling system that allows the Alakran to fire rapidly and continuously without time limits. Its American cousin is called the Scorpion, made by Global Military Products. This one features a fully digital fire control system with auto-aim and auto-recalibration after each shot, giving it an impressive 2-meter margin of error at a 1-kilometer distance. A video reportedly showing Ukrainian troops testing this system did pop up online, but there's been no official confirmation of Scorpions being handed over to the Ukrainian armed forces yet. Don't forget to subscribe if you want more stories on how Western weapons are showing up on the battlefield. Now, here's another sleek piece of kit, and it comes from a country that knows all too well what Russian aggression looks like. That's right, Suomi, or Finland, has been quietly supplying Ukraine with its 120mm mortars since 2022. The 120 KRH-92 offers standard performance and standard weight for a heavy mortar, about 342 kilograms when transported, and 159 kilograms in firing position. Finland is believed to have around 698 of these mortars in service. They also keep 60 older KRH-85s around as training units to save wear and tear on the newer ones. And where are those newer ones being worn out? You're looking at it in this video right here. Now let's move to a smaller caliber and a bigger mystery. Let's talk about the Azerbaijani 20N5, an 82mm mortar. The Azerbaijani government hasn't confirmed delivering these to Ukraine, so their presence on the front line remains something of a secret. But wherever they came from, they're definitely getting the job done. The 20N5 is a relatively young design from the 2010s, made with modern alloys and composite materials for better durability. It has a max range of 5,400 meters, which makes it one of the most far-reaching light infantry mortars in its class. And it weighs just 47.5 kilograms, breaks down into 3 parts, and doesn't need a special vehicle for transport, meaning you can lug it just about anywhere. And here's the kicker. It's compatible with Soviet 82mm ammo, the same stuff used by both Ukrainian and Russian forces. For comparison, the Russian 2 B-14 Podnose has a slightly shorter maximum range. But the Podnose doesn't aim to be fancy. Its main strengths are mass production and reliability. It's a modernized successor to Soviet mortars from the 1930s, with a lighter frame and an improved sight. It's still used by Ukrainian troops too, but there's now a newer local replacement on the way, the UPIK-82, a Ukrainian-made 82mm mortar. This is the UPIK-82, made in Ukraine. A pretty solid mortar. It's performed very well in combat. Max range, about 4 kilometers. The UPIK-82 mortar was developed through a collaboration between Melitopol Auto Tractor Parts Plant, Ukrainian industrial engineering company UPIK, and Ukrainian Armor. It's actively used by the Ukrainian Armed Forces, especially by units in the Territorial Defense Forces. The UPIK-82 allows 360-degree targeting without repositioning the base plate and features a safety mechanism that prevents double loading. It's also compatible with next-gen 82mm rounds that offer increased range up to 6 kilometers and a bigger explosive charge. This system clearly outperforms Russia's Podnose, but it's still got room to grow. And now for dessert, let's talk about the smallest mortar in the Ukrainian armed forces. Honestly, it looks more like a toy than a weapon. But don't be fooled, it's a fascinating piece of gear. This is a Ukrainian dual-caliber 30-40mm mortar, weighing just 5 kilograms. Yeah, that's right, 5. You could almost stuff it in your jacket. Made by a private Ukrainian company, this thing is designed to fire 30mm and 40mm grenades from automatic grenade launchers like the MK or AGS. Who says you can't shoot a grenade like a mortar? We already let off a bunch before filming. Here's how it works. You load the grenade into a special tube with a notch at the bottom, slide it into the barrel, and when it drops, boom, it ignites the primer. It's a clever solution for when you need to leave the heavy launchers behind, but still want some mobile firepower, even if the range is short. Heads up, firing! All in all, you could argue that Ukrainians are now the most experienced mortar crews on the planet. There are very few systems left that Ukrainian troops haven't worked with. But this variety is also a challenge. Every mortar and every shell behaves differently, which means more work and prep before you can fire. Unlike Ukraine, Russia's mortar forces rely on standardized but outdated systems. Sure, they've got the numbers, but thanks to Ukraine's highly skilled soldiers across all branches, the number of Russian mortar crews is steadily shrinking. And this, believe it or not, isn't even all of the mortars Ukraine is using right now. What topic should we cover next? Drop your ideas in the comments. We'll choose from the most liked ones.